The invention of the camera played a significant role in advancing humanity. They played an important part in documenting history, as photographs provide a physical and undeniable evidence of the past. Photographs hold more credibility compared to documents, as documents may not be accurate. The saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words is a great way of describing this, because what can be described in a document can be shown with just a single picture. Cameras also helped with scientific advancements. Devices such as microscopes and telescopes can help cameras see out in space to observe celestial objects. They can also help in exploring the microscopic world. Using cameras, scientists can now better study things like bacteria and viruses. Using the information that they gather, they can produce cures for various diseases. Cameras are now also used for security. There are cameras everywhere that can be used to gather evidence in case of crime. Criminals are now caught much faster thanks to them. Cameras are also used in crime scene investigations. They are used to show the relationship between the evidence and things around it, as well as determining if whether or not something is related to the crime. There's a story about a forensic photographer in Florida who shot the inside of every cabinet and the refrigerator at a homicide in a home, just as a matter of procedure. It was later discovered that the victim had a receipt for a 6-pack of beer, matching the beer shown in the photograph of the refrigerator. Relatives noted that the victim did not drink beer. Further investigation led the team to a convenience store where the beer was purchased, and the surveillance tape showed the victim with an unknown person. It turns out that the victim had picked up a hitchhiker, purchased the beer for that person, and came back to the house. The photograph of the refrigerator contents had created the link, enabling the investigators to find the suspect. The first camera, also known as camera obscura, which translates to dark chamber in Latin, is not like the cameras we are used to today. It is unclear who invented the camera obscura, as many throughout history have written about it or used something similar, with the earliest being from a Han Chinese scholar, Mozi. Some of these people include Aristotle, who observed this occurrence, Anthemius of Tralles, who in the 6th century used the form of camera obscura in his experiments, and Arab scholar Al-Kindi, who worked with light and pinholes in the 11th century. The camera obscura was a small, dark room or chamber with light entering a small hole. The objects outside the camera were reflected into the surface inside of the camera using sunlight. This camera was not used to capture images. Rather, it was used to view eclipses and study them without damaging the viewer's eyes. Experimenting with the camera obscura, French inventor Joseph Nicephore Niepce found a way to make the images permanent. Using this, he took the first ever photograph, titled View from the Window at Grasse, in 1826. But early photos weren't easy to take. For example, this photo took around 8 hours because it needed a long exposure period. This made it very difficult to photograph most things. However, many technical advancements in later years made photography more convenient. In 1839, Louis Daguerre invented a technique that significantly lowered the long exposure time and produced more detailed images in a process called the daguerreotype. At the same time, William Henry Fox Talbot came up with the calotype method, which was able to produce more than one copy of the image. Later, George Eastman developed ways to make photography even more accessible. He developed the dry gelatin roll film, making it easier to carry film, and produced the first small, inexpensive camera. Forensic photographers must be competent photographers. Therefore, They should know all the parts and understand how a camera works. A camera works by capturing light using a lens. It then directs that light to either a film or a digital sensor. When the light enters the lens, it goes through the aperture that controls how much of the light gets in. The film or sensor that absorbs this light records it and uses it to form an image. There are many types of cameras. DSLR cameras use mirrors and prisms to direct light into the sensor. Mirrorless cameras lack this mirror system, resulting in a more compact body. There are also point-and-shoot cameras, which are much smaller and simpler. But today, I'll be mainly talking about DSLR cameras. There are many parts that go into a DSLR camera. Each part plays an important role in how the image turns out. First up, the body of the camera. The body houses all the inner workings of the camera, as well as the many buttons that can be used to control the different functions that your camera is capable of. There are lots of buttons on a camera, and to anyone new, it may seem very intimidating, but it's actually quite simple. Firstly, there's the shutter button. This button is what controls the focusing and is also what takes the picture. All cameras have this button and is usually found on the right-hand side of the body. There's also the mode dial. This allows you to select different shooting modes, such as auto, where all the exposure settings are done for you, and all you have to do is take the picture. This setting is good for things like street photography, where picture opportunities may come and go. But it is also important to understand how the manual setting works. The manual setting is also found on the mode dial. This allows you to manually change all the settings, such as aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. There's also the program mode. This setting gives you automatic exposure while still giving you control over the settings like ISO or white balance. Aperture priority mode is just like the name says. You can set the aperture manually, while the camera automatically does everything else for you. Shutter priority mode is the same. You can set the shutter speed and everything else is done for you. Scene modes include presets for specific scenes, like portrait, landscape, sports, or night. It adjusts the settings for the best results in these scenes. Moving on, another large part of the camera is the lens. The lens is easily removable, meaning you can use different types of lenses that changes how the picture turns out. There are zoom lenses, which are the ones that usually come with the camera body when you buy one. These lenses are great to have as they have a great range for photographing anything. They are very versatile and great all-around lenses. Prime lenses are very different, however. Prime lenses have been around since cameras were first invented. Prime lenses are fixed and therefore cannot be zoomed in or out. They aren't all-rounders like zoom lenses, but are great for specific types of photography. Because they are fixed, they are finely tuned for that one focal length. Moving significantly in price ranges, there are telephoto lenses. These lenses are even stronger than standard zoom lenses, but are very bulky and aren't nearly as practical. But they are very useful to professionals, as the quality is unmatched. Besides the lenses, there is the camera sensor. The camera sensor is what captures light and turns it into an image. The larger the sensor, the more information it can store, thus resulting in a more detailed image. The optical viewfinder is an eyepiece that shows the scene through the camera's lenses, using mirrors and prisms. It provides the photographer with a real-time view of the image. Usually underneath the viewfinder is a display. The display is used to compose shots, review images, or to navigate the settings of the camera. In many cameras, the memory card slot and the battery compartment are found near each other. This is for convenience, as you can easily access two important parts when needed.